And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, now on YouTube, originating from the Rich Flora Studios in the City of Charm, downtown Avon Park. I would like to remind you that if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, put them in the comments below, or you can drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Check out this YouTube page daily. We're going to be putting up new programming on a regular basis, and maybe even a couple of shows some days. And subscribe to our YouTube page, like our YouTube page, and join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. Good morning to our friend John Larson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are we doing today?
Excellent, sir. Are you staying cool?
Boy, I'll tell you.
Yesterday, the heat index was 112 degrees.
I was sanding wood on my patio yesterday.
Oh, my gosh.
in the heat of the day. But at least you're undercover under my patio, so the carport, so that was okay, but it was steamy out there, let's put it that way.
Sandra and I had a bonding experience. We had to change the wheels on our sliding glass doors out into what is commonly known as the cat room, which does not have air conditioning. And we were soaked.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, there were fans blowing, and like you say, it's under shade, but it's darn, but it's hot up north too. It's hot everywhere.
Yeah, and whatnot. They had a couple cool days, my daughter said, in the 70s, but it's jumping right back up this week, and so on. But yeah, it was a little bit humid outside yesterday, and all that. But so we'll try a little bit again today, and so on. You only do so much of that, and you make sure you take a big heaping glass of drink with you when you're outside like that.
Because it comes out in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
It comes out from every pore in your body.
Yes, it does, because the only thing, when I'm done with that, the only thing I'm going to do is, audience, take my clothes off and go take a shower, okay? That's it. That's the only thing give you any kind of relief.
We will not be posting pictures.
No, I know, but when it's 96 outside and you have the air set at 77, it feels like you're going into a refrigerator.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay?
It's very nice. I do want to take a moment to thank a couple of folks who've helped us with sponsorship, and some folks that are friends of ours. First of all, Nell Roberts over at Ridge Florist, ridgeflorist.com. If you want to send flowers, that's the place to do it. We're here in the Ridge Florist Studios thanks to her largesse, and I want to thank them for that. And also, so our friends over at Strangely Warmed Coffee, Steve and Jerry Slaybaugh, do a great job. Strangely Warmed, and people say, why is it strangely warmed? Well, that refers to John Wesley, who was strangely warmed by the Holy Spirit. They're Methodists, and so they began. And if you want to listen to the interview, you can hear the interview that we did earlier with Steve about 12 weeks ago now. But at any rate, they took that and used that as the name. He ended up buying out the coffee company and started down there in Sebring, and it's a wonderful success. If you would like to be a sponsor, we've got some other people we're going to talk about later, but you can get to us at the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com. Before we get into the great big national news, we are here in the City of Charm, Avon Park, and it appears that they now want to try to reconstitute their police department. Back in 2012, they disbanded it under former city manager Julian DeLeon, which at the time was a cost-saving measure. They were going to let the sheriff's office just take care of Avon Park because, of course, the sheriff takes care of all of law enforcement except in designated areas, and so they made a deal. Well, about 2 years ago, the sheriff came back and said, you guys are pretty high maintenance here, and he began to up the amount of money and increase the amount of money. And the city is now, under their new city manager, Daniel Kelly, is going to be looking at reconstituting the police department, which will be on Thursday, which I think is the 25th. I'll have to look. But at any rate, that's going to be an interesting thing to see if they can reconstitute their police department.
Yeah. And, well, of course, they did away with it, I guess. Wasn't it a cost savings measure, supposedly, when they did away with it?
Yeah, and there was some rumors that after they did the police department, they were going to do the fire department and put the city under the countywide. And, of course, that was widely denied. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. And to be honest, it has not happened. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I did ask Mayor Garrett Anderson to come on and talk about it, but he's pretty busy with his business right now. He didn't have time to come and talk about it. But speaking of law enforcement, I guess the 800-pound gorilla in the room is President Trump has told Pam Bondi unseal. Tulsi Gabbard had declassified all the documents, alleging that then President Obama manufactured the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. This is something we've known for better than a decade now.
Yeah, and I was watching Glenn Beck before I left, and of course he's live early in the morning and whatnot, and he said that, his reporting and the information he had, and he's pretty high up in the food chain when it comes to news, okay, and whatnot, that this could be by far the biggest story ever because of the implications of what they tried to do, which was, and they tried to prevent Trump from winning the election in 2016
Yes.
with the help of Hillary, okay, and her minions, but Obama, it happened, literally, they changed the narrative on the story because Obama had come out with a, I guess, news release or whatever prior to this happening on the election in 16, that there was no Russian collusion, nothing was going on here and all that. Then all of a sudden, when they saw Hillary slipping and Trump rising, they called an emergency meeting, Obama did, of John Brennan, Clapper, and FBI, Comey, and Susan Rice.
Brennan was there.
Right.
Yeah, Valerie Jarrett was in
Right.
there, I think.
And they put together this, concocted this thing of Russian collusion. That's how Trump was going to win, through Russian collusion. And they concocted the whole thing in a matter of a few days just prior to the election coming up, so they could try and sway away from Trump and then put Hillary back out front. But guess what? It didn't work.
All the drubbing did not work. And interestingly enough, in real time, Rush Limbaugh was outlining what we are now having been released after these investigations, pretty much the same exact timeline that Limbaugh kept saying this was part of Hillary's campaign disinformation, that it was what they called opposition research, and they knew, a lot of us were screaming, this is not true, this is not true. What were we? Oh, I think we were conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, we were everything.
Why we were just defending a traitor to our country, and that this was that Putin and Trump were in bed together, and this was the famous peeing on the mattress story came out, stuff that was totally fabricated, and we at the time were saying this is not true, this is not true, this is not true, and now we're proved again. The conspiracy theorists are proved to be right.
Yep. I mean, it's just amazing. And, it's surprising to me, as much as these people tried to cover their tracks in every way possible, that they would have left this evidence in a position where someone like Tulsi Gabbard or whoever that Trump put in office this time could have unearthed this information. You would think that they would have scrubbed this totally. But no, they kept it. That's why she's able to name the dates, the times, the people, and so on. So it's almost like Keystone Cops when it comes. You're trying to perpetrate this huge cover-up on the American people, and yet you left the information behind, which is, I guess they never thought Trump was going to get back in office.
Well, on the internet, nothing goes away. Nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen these memes saying, "I'm glad I did all my stupid stuff before the internet." When I was growing up, and I think that number one, they were careless because they were arrogant. They never thought they would be found out. And they thought, well, we'll be in power, and even if we do get found out, well, who's going to do anything? I think, and I've told this story many times. I'll do the Reader's Digest version. I remember on Election Day hearing Rush Limbaugh talking about the way the media reacted when Ronald Reagan won, because they didn't expect Reagan to win, just like they didn't expect Trump to win. And as the evening went on, you could feel the timbre change in the news coverage, and I saw exactly the same thing. I think my personal opinion is that I think the media was in on it. They knew that the fix was in,
Yeah.
and that there was no way that Trump was going to be allowed to win this election. In fact, we saw a composite this morning. They keep recirculating it because it never gets old, about all these Nancy Pelosi and Tom Hanks and Barack Obama. Well, Trump will never be president. He'll never be president. And I think that they knew that they had the election system well in hand. Apparently, it wasn't as well in hand as they thought.
Well, it was obvious that the media had to be tied into this, because it would have been one thing for them to change the narrative, but they had to circulate that massively to the American public before the election, which is where the media came in. And so they put out the lies, they perpetrated the whole thing. The media took it, ran with it at the behest of Obama and his people, and there you go. The story was planted, but fortunately for the American people, it did not work.
I want to get back to that in just 1 second, but it's interesting. We always hear nothing's going to change until people start getting arrested.
Amen.
And we have now seen the precedent set. Former President Trump was arrested for, they call it 34 felonies. Each payment they counted as a felony. Mm-hmm. So because they tried to run up the score on this. So, there was one case where he did something and the bank said, well, no, they didn't do anything to us. Well, that didn't matter. They were, I guess he declared it as a deductible,
it was a business expense.
Yeah. And he wasn't allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So they turned that into 34 felonies in a court who really didn't like him.
Right.
But so the president has been set for arresting a former president. Could a former President Obama be arrested? And they always made a big deal out of any Republican being arrested. There'll be wailing and gnashing of teeth if they arrested Barack Hussein O.
Not only that, you're going to be faced with the discrimination charges on top of everything else. So, because Obama, in his world and surrounded by his minions, all right, is revered as the number one minority person in the country, all right, mm-hmm. literally. And so that would be, if anything happens, and the sentiment that I heard this morning so far is, okay, call in, I was listening to it, and it's, nothing ever happens, nobody will go to jail, nobody will be arrested. Well, that may be the case in the past. I don't disagree with that, because we've seen politicians get away with bloody murder and nothing ever happens. I hope this would be a different change.
Well, they're trying to drag their feet because they think they can outweigh him.
Oh, yeah.
They think that, if they can drag their feet for 24, 36 months, mm-hmm. They can outweigh him. Mm-hmm. But Donald Trump has been moving at warp speed getting things done. And he apparently spent his 4 years out of office learning how things worked. And he has had the ability to move things forward much more quickly than anyone could have possibly anticipated. Although the last 4 years under the Biden-Obama administration, you had seen things change very, very quickly as well. Men who thought they were women put in charge of the military. The student loans forgiven, even though the Supreme Court said you can't do it, they did it anyway.
Right.
And their idea was, what are you going to do about it? That was their answer. What are you going to do about it?
And essentially, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he did it, and nobody came back later and said, okay, no, we're going to rescind all of those forgiven loans. Mm-hmm. No, that didn't happen. All those forgiven loans were forgiven.
You can't unring that bell.
No. So, I mean, it did happen. They got what they wanted, and so on. So, and that would have been going on still today if it wouldn't have been that Biden didn't run and didn't win.
And so my question is, do you think they're going to go from the bottom up or the top down? I mean, do you think you're going to see, Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett and James Clapper getting picked up before they go to the top of the list?
Sometimes they say that, you arrest the low-hanging fruit first. And they want to, we could offer you a deal. Okay? You could spend either the rest of your life in jail for treason, or if you had some valuable information that could lead to other people getting in trouble, we'd go along with that.
That's what they do with drug dealers.
Yeah. So absolutely. So I think they would go after the low-hanging minions, if you will, the Clappers and the Brennans and maybe the Comeys and so on, and see if they would sing. Now maybe they won't, but let's see if they would sing. If they sing, then you have first-hand information right from the source beyond the information that they've already dug up.
Or even some of the career FBI, CIA officers who have left because they got canned because they weren't. Let's use the word loyal. We'll use that word. Right. And if they can go to them and say, you could spend, and you're a small fish. You got no bargaining. You're no Susan Rice. You have no bargaining power whatsoever. You don't know people. You can't pull strings. So we can really make it hard on you. And they'll say, well, you ought to go. Because I've heard it said, they've never been offered to me. I've heard it said, the first guy is the one who makes the deal. After that, the deals get thinner and thinner because they've got what they need, going after what they want. So it's going to be interesting to see, and it's also going to be interesting to see how the media handles it, because NPR and PBS have been defunded both by the state of Florida and by the federal government. It's going to be up to their subscribers now to keep them afloat.
Well, just here's a brief headline from MSNBC this morning, all right, to tell you how this story changes. Their comment is, DNI Gabbard concocts odd treasonous conspiracy theory, eyes Russian probe prosecutions.
Yeah.
So you see how those words are twisted?
Oh, yeah.
And whatnot, concocted, all right? It's like made out of thin air. No, she's got the written proof, all right?
Well, they're only like one tick above NPR and PBS.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to me. But you've now started seeing CNN trying to come back to the middle, trying to regain viewers. I think it's too late for them.
Oh, yeah.
But they're trying, and a lot of the mainstream networks are in real, NBC, CBS, ABC are in real trouble. And I'm going to say it again, why some conglomerate of conservatives don't get together and buy that at bargain basement prices and turn it back into what the mainstream media used to be, is at least fair and even handling of the news and wholesome TV programs, the Andy Griffith Show and the Father Knows Best and the My Three Sons, Ozzie and Harriet. That kind of used to. The TV was an instructional manual on how to handle certain problems. Leave it to Beaver would get in trouble. Ward would show him where he got into trouble, and they would make amends and they'd fix things. So that when your kid got in trouble, say, "Oh, this is the way he handled it. This is the way he do it." And they sit in front of the TV, watching it. So I think that these guys have one or two options: is to either go back to what the American public wants, or just go broke, go woke, go broke.
Well, the funny another side story this weekend, which made big news for the people that really care. I could care less, but the letting go of Stephen Colbert after his contract expires next year.
Yes.
Oh, my God. You see, the internet just blew up with all these people that couldn't believe it. Oh, this guy is sacred. How dare you let him go? This is conspiracy theory and all that. It was unbelievable. So, yes, they, and the people that jump up and down and clabber for all this, it's just amazing to me. But I haven't watched late-night television until when Johnny Carson was on. That's the last I watched. After Johnny Carson and Jay Leno, I didn't watch it anymore.
Carson had advice for these guys, and they didn't take it. Yeah. I remember, who was it? Dan Rather? Somebody was interviewing Carson and asked him why he didn't get into political issues. And he stopped and he tapped his pencil on the desk, and he said, "Look," he says, "that's not what we do. We're entertainment. This is," and he didn't say it in this many words, but he says, "This is a chance for people to get away, to watch Dean Martin or to watch Steve Martin or upcoming comics or entertainers, singers, dancers, and he has some sports figures like they had Arnold Palmer's wife come on for and you've seen wonderful interviews with Carson, and about the only time he did politics, hey, there they are.
A little early. Thank
the Lord. he would do stories, joke setups, and one of the ones, the famous ones, is when he talked about how there was a toilet paper shortage, but there wasn't.
Right.
But he created one.
Right.
And he would do jokes about the president or something, but it had nothing to do with politics. It was a setup for a joke.
Right, and the things that he did with Ed McMahon too, the two of them
Oh,
would
yeah.
play off of one another. Oh my God! And then he'd get guys in there like Jonathan Winters and that unbelievable funny stuff. I mean,
Yes.
you laugh. Today, these guys are nothing but Trump bashers. That's all they are. They get on and they bash Trump their whole show.
They're
That's it.
mean-spirited.
Yeah, and so Colbert is right at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned. And these guys make huge money.
Well,
Huge
not
money.
apparently not Colbert, and
Well-
the story that I'm getting is this has zero to do with his politics. It has a lot to do with his ability to make money, and it's gone from the black to the red. And when you go into the red, one of two things happens: and both of them end up in you being gone. Okay, either they replace you or they cancel your show, but you're out of there because you're toxic.
Yeah, well, they have. I mean, you can see the viewing audience has dropped dramatically on both MSNBC and CNN. I mean, even on all the other three networks, it's dropped dramatically. Even Fox News
Yes.
has lost a tremendous amount of viewers. Once Newsmax took hold, I switched from Fox News to Newsmax.
Yes.
And there's a few people on there that I watch regularly and whatnot. And the rest of my time is spent watching podcasts on YouTube.
More and more people have gone to, and that's why we're on the internet now. I've always thought that we could. It's interesting because I thought we could increase our reach by going to the internet, and I worked very hard to take the terrestrial radio station I was at and work to increase the reach. And say, we can get a bunch of people listening on their smartphones because they don't have radios anymore. They don't carry the transistor radio anymore. They carry their smartphone and they click and they listen. So you can it's easy to be a national station because you have the internet. And I was not successful in moving in that direction. So I said, well, I'll just take the thing. But people, some of the highest listened to episodes that we have are local issues. When I had Major Ray Hall on talking about the update of the Kenilworth Lodge, it was a huge response. And so people want the local information, the local news. So that's what we're going to try to do here. We can't not talk about Tulsi Gabbard and this, but I mean Avon Park reconstituting their police department, talking about the Highlands County budget, for instance. Talking about local things that are going on seems to draw a lot of listeners. So we're doing a balance here between the two. But yes, I gave a card to a lady, and I said, she says, Barry, we miss you so much on the radio. I said, well, I'm on YouTube now. She says, really? I said, yes. I said, these are what they call podcasts. They're condensed single episodes. We're not live yet. I'm working. Looks like August now. I'm working on making us having some live programs. I said, you can find me on YouTube. And she looked at my card and she says, I wouldn't do this for anybody but you. And so she's now listening. And you've got a friend up in Wisconsin, right?
Well, John listens up there, yeah, in Wisconsin. I've got other people in North Florida that listen and so on. So it's I think it's important that, that we spread our wings, if you will, as far and wide as we can. Because word spreads. I mean, if somebody picks up something, they like it, guess what? You talk to your neighbors, you talk to your friends, you talk to your family about it. So that's like free advertising.
Yes.
Free advertising.
Like and share with your friends, and we're always very interested in your ideas and who you'd like to have on. I have our friend Javita has been all over me to get Brian Donalds on, if I only could. A candidate for Florida governor. And
right.
I would like to get him on. People have asked me about Scott Franklin. If I could get him on, I would. And I now, as I was telling John before we went on the air, I have hooked up a mix minus so we can do interviews over the phone. So we can do like we used to do in the olden days on terrestrial radio.
Right.
We can do interviews over the phone. And John and I've asked him anyway, to help with a series on Made in America products, including Anderson Arms, and he makes here in Avon Park. He makes a lot of bullets, and you can get 9mm, you can get 45 ACP, 44 Magnum. It's under the Oak Island brand, and if you want to find out more, go to ammunitionplanet.com. You have to be over 18. ammunitionplanet.com, because they make the best ammunition on the planet. So you can go there, and I have been amazed. He started, and I've asked him to come and talk about this. He started as a competition shooter, and he had great ammunition, and the guy shooting against him said, "Where do you get your bullets?" He goes, "Well, I make them." Did you make them? I said, "Yeah, I make them." He said, "Well, can you make some for me?" And so he started making bullets for competition shooting, and this is probably the best, one of the best jobs you could have hollowed yourself out is people buying a lot of bullets. There being a lot of bullets.
Yep.
And so it has just grown over the years, and he's hollowed himself out a great job. But it's Anderson Arms, the best ammunition on the planet, ammunitionplanet.com, and Oak Island is the stuff that he does. So it's
I thought I heard the Trump administration, maybe Trump himself, a week or so ago, talk about they want to enact reciprocity for concealed carry across the country.
yes.
And that was one of my big frustrations, which I said to you before, and I even said it on the radio, and that when I travel north, and if I carry with me, which most of the times I do because I have a concealed carry, but when I wanted to go to New England, I had to leave my gun at my daughter's, because only New Hampshire has open carry, okay, which is something to see when you see a guy walking around with a big 6-shooter on their hip, okay, and it's visual, but we don't have reciprocity, even though you're entitled to carry. New York, Connecticut, Vermont, all of those states, Massachusetts, up in New England, they're not concealed carry. You can't carry, so you have to either do it illegally, if you will, and maybe get caught, which would be not good, or leave your guns behind.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, we had a story out of, I think it was New Jersey, where they had pulled a guy over and asked him if he had a gun on him, and he said, well, no, he didn't have any weaponry on him. And they said, well, we know that you have a concealed carry out of another state. Might have been Florida, I can't remember. But they knew that he had a concealed carry, so they were suspicious that he might be illegally carrying a gun in that state. And reciprocity, for the folks who don't understand the big term, it's like your driver's license. Any place in the United States, you've got your driver's license, and
Right.
even in Canada. I mean, you drive and you got your Florida driver's license in Hawaii, you name a state, and everything's good. And they say your concealed carry should be good in any state. And I've seen, you and I have both seen the Second Amendment. That's my concealed carry.
Right, absolutely. And you should be entitled, and I don't know how they get away with that, because you're a concealed carry permit person, that you're not allowed to carry from state to state. It should be that way.
It's states' rights. And there's upsides and downsides to everything. And the United States is not one big country. It is a bunch of states who are united. And we just had Independence Day and talked about how the states came together to form a country. But when they tried to split the country apart, and I just heard a very interesting theory about how worldwide figures had tried to split the United States in half so it would be an easier country to conquer. And that British troops were in Canada, French troops were in Mexico, and they were hoping to split the country into 3 parts, west of the Mississippi plus the north and the southeast of the Mississippi, to break the country apart. And only Abraham Lincoln, who I don't necessarily have a big love for, was able to see it and preserve the Union and hold it together. But if you look at Amendment 10, there's only 2 sentences, and that is, the rights not outlined in the Constitution are given to the states and the people respectively. The Constitution is a limiting document. It limits the federal government, and the federal government has been able to, just by sheer force of will, expand itself and make it into something it was never intended by the founders to be. It was supposed to help the states stay together and regulate interstate problems, interstate commerce, a currency, some of these other things. But so can Maryland say we're not going to recognize the Florida concealed carry? Sure they can. Sure they can.
And they do.
And Trump wants to say no. That's going to be one thing that we're going to allow, is that if you have concealed carry in one state, you can concealed carry anywhere.
You know, and the other thing that's ironic about that whole deal is the states, primarily the states that do not allow you to have concealed carry, have the highest crime rate and the highest murder rate using firearms. Okay?
Yes.
I mean, they do. So, I mean, this is, you know, you take California, you take New York, you take Chicago. My God, in Chicago, the 4th of July, I think it was 45 people were shot, and I think 5 people were killed by firearms in Chicago over the 4th of July weekend. So, I mean, but that happens every weekend. There's a tremendous number of shootings, and on holiday weekends, which adds another day to it, a Monday usually, there's more shootings and more people that are killed.
And there are more opportunities to be impaired. You know, I mean, on Independence Day, I would say there's probably more drinking that goes on than Easter Sunday. Call me crazy, okay?
Probably.
But and when people have their judgment impaired, a lot of times bad things happen.
Well, look at what happened in California, L.A. this weekend. A guy with a car who was, I guess, inebriated, plowed through a crowd and injured like 25 people, some seriously. And then finally, somebody who had probably an illegal gun finally shot him. And that stopped him. It didn't kill him, but that stopped him.
Well, they pulled him out of the car and rather thrashed him a bit.
Right. So, I mean, you know, those kind of things are happening. So you can enact all the laws you want, but unless you do something about the so-called bad people that commit these crimes, they don't.
Well, people need, bad guys need to be afraid of what happens. If you break into my house, bad things can happen to you quickly. Okay, you just want people to say, because thieves usually go after soft targets or easy targets. Like when you have a story about 10 or 12 cars were broken into in a certain neighborhood. Those are cars that were unlocked. If a car's locked, generally they'll just go on to one that they can, the door pops open, well, they can get in there and look in the glove box and ravage the thing.
Well, that was, I watched a video this weekend of that very thing. It was 3 guys, I think, were breaking into cars and stealing whatever they could find in a car. People leave their laptops and their iPads and their phones, and you wouldn't believe what some people just leave in their car. Why you would do that, I have no idea, but they did. Well, luckily, they got caught, okay? All 3 of them got caught. The cops ran them down and so on and arrested all 3 of them. So, I mean, but that happens unfortunately on a regular basis, and that's what we need to have. And I really believe that, and it's happening. It's not making monumental news, but if you watch enough of the news reporting these days, more and more people are getting arrested for committing various crimes. It doesn't matter the crime, various crimes. I mean, they shot a ICE agent who was off duty this weekend in New York in the face. They caught one of the 2 guys that was involved, I guess. Okay, they tried to rob this ICE agent who was off duty, and in the process of trying to rob him, man or woman, I couldn't remember, they shot the person in the face, and so on. But I mean, there are corruption crimes. Yes, you may say, well, John, they're not big fish. No, they're not big fish yet, but they're arresting people that are defrauding Social Security, defrauding food stamps, defrauding, Section 8 housing, workers' compensation. All of these things are people are beginning to get arrested.
Yes.
And so on. So that's what you need to see. You need to start arresting the bad people and putting them away.
Well, under the former administration, when Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they would cause chaos, they would get arrested, and suddenly someone would show up with their bail and spring them out and get them out. That's not happening now.
No.
And so I think that is a wonderful deterrent. And they had one guy, as you probably saw, the ICE agents were making a raid in San Mateo, and they went to a big box store, and they ran a bunch of the illegals ran, and one guy went over and started trying to slash their tires, and they arrested him, and his wife started screaming, "He's an American citizen," and they said, "Too bad, he slashed our tires, so he's under arrest." And it's a zero tolerance policy. It is stunning to me to watch people who know that they're breaking the law, who are so upset that they get arrested for it.
Well, the biggest thing is now arresting some politicians, especially like city council people and that.
Yes.
This weekend I watched the story of this woman they call him city councilor in Worcester, Massachusetts, okay, not far from where I used to live, and so on. She was arrested because she was stopping ICE from arresting an illegal agent, or illegal citizen, if you will, illegal alien, who had taken a gun and pistol whipped or pointed it at a pregnant woman, okay? And this is who the city councilor was trying to protect from the ICE agents. So they arrested not only the illegal, but they also now have arrested the city councilor and so on. And she's taking a big beating publicly in Worcester for making such a scene out of the whole thing when it didn't need to be.
Well, a lot of the Democrats have positioned themselves in favor of illegal immigrants,
yes, they
in
have.
favor of lawbreakers, in favor of things that are not for the United States. And we're going to talk about this tomorrow because we're almost out of time here. But it's something that you will need to remember when the midterms come up, and they're right around the corner.
Yeah,
Right
it's
around the
unfortunate, because let's say, face it, next year, all the House Republicans are going to be spending the bulk of their time campaigning because the election will be at the end of next year, November of 26. So this year, they need to get everything done they can because next year they're going to be mostly involved in campaigns and so on. So, yes.
There may be an upside to that as well, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. I just thank you for everybody who's been listening and everybody who's been liking and sharing and telling their friends about this. You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded here at the Ridge Flora Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, people you'd like us to talk to, issues you'd like us to talk about, you can just put it in the comments below there. We'll answer you as quickly as we can, or you can send it to thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Please continue to check out our YouTube pages. We'll be putting up new programming as it becomes available, and subscribe to hear the YouTube page, also the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram, as we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way. John Larson and Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.